Hello, I am Liz Bradshaw, and I'm going to be presenting on fatness and the marginalization of fat people. So first, as a disclaimer, I just want to mention, while the word fat often carries a negative stigma with it, fat is simply a descriptive word, and those in the plus size community have reclaimed it and embraced the word to destigmatize fatness. So first off, we're going to start off by defining what fat phobia is. So you may have heard it called by other names, maybe sizeism or anti-fat bias, but we're mainly going to be referring to it as fat phobia. So the dominant narrative outlines that the ideal and attractive body type is skinny and fit when it comes to appearance and size of bodies. This belief is mainstream and has been passed down through many forms of media. So to define fat phobia, it's a system of oppression that promotes hate speech against fat people and feeds into a fear of gaining weight and becoming fat. Fat phobia is so deeply ingrained in the society that the effects of fat phobia often are internalized and go unnoticed because they are so ordinary. Through the decades, media has enabled the spread of fat phobia the most. Before TV became popular, magazines were often targeting ads towards women, especially on how to lose weight. So in this corner, we have a 1950s ad. It says, "Don't be fat, lose 20 pounds safely." But often these ads would encourage people to encourage an unhealthy eating habits to suppress hunger. So next, in many television shows and movies, fat characters would often be deemed the comic relief, the fat character stereotype. They were represented as being gluttonous, unattractive, and unlovable unless they lost weight. Fast forward to today's day and age with social media, there's an endless supply of slimming filters on a variety of social media apps that you'll often find influencers or content creators photoshopping their photos to get rid of fat features such as double chin, love handles, belly fat, etc. So in the example below of Khloe Kardashian, she's a highly influential woman. She was criticized for posting the photo on the left, which is so photoshopped that fans said it looked like an entirely new face. They didn't even recognize her. There's also very little positive representation of plus size models. Often from many clothing brands, there may not even be inclusion of plus size clothing. In my example here, I have a picture of the Victoria's Secret angel. The models are widely known for being underweight and having extreme eating disorders because fat phobia is so prevalent in the modeling industry. And one of the biggest, examples of fat phobia, I believe, is diet culture. So diet culture is heavily rooted in capitalism. There is a $72 billion weight loss industry in which companies advertise products that take advantage of internalized fat phobia and insecurity. I'm sure many people have heard of purifying or detoxing tea or weight loss pills that claim to make you lose a lot of weight in a short amount of time, which is very unreliable. It's very unhealthy. In my example here, lower right corner, I have a 17 magazine cover which says, "Your best body, the diet, the workout, the clothes." This also proves the extent to which adolescents are exposed to pressure to conform to a skinny body from a very young age, especially girls. And then finally, we have plastic surgery. It's also a booming industry. It targets features of aging or features of fat people. And all of these fat phobic sentiments, they can lead to detrimental consequences. We're talking things like eating disorders, low self-esteem, substance abuse, and much, much more. So next, I'm going to be showing you a clip from a TED Talk titled "The Fear of Fat." So in the TED Talk, the speaker talks about how a prestigious dance company hiring plus-size dancers was unheard of and controversial. So the lack of plus-size dancers in the field of dance, it's not a result of the lack of interest in dance when you're plus size or that fat people can't dance. It's rooted in fat phobia. Ballet dancers specifically are notorious for having eating disorders due to the pressure to be thin. Skeptics doubted their abilities and their talent because they held fat phobic beliefs that fat people were lazy, they were inactive, and ungraceful. These beliefs discriminate against fat people in all fields of work, not just dancing. So in response to fat phobia, many fat activists started a movement focusing on equality, acceptance of all body types, which was labeled the body positivity movement. So it encouraged the end of fat shaming and discrimination, and it believes that beauty is constructed by society and it should not determine self-worth or value. In the example in the bottom right corner, there are women who wrote beautiful on their stomachs and they're standing out in public. Now, considering that many plus size people are encouraged to cover up their fat bodies or to feel shame for their fat bodies, this movement allowed many people to begin feeling comfortable in their own skin. And as the saying goes, all bodies are beautiful. However, there was still a lot of criticism of this movement. People still believe there's too much focus on appearance. Often the movement was not inclusive of LGBTQ+, people of color, disabled bodies. Because people have intersectional identities, fat phobia is not the only system of oppression surrounding their appearance, which people of color, LGBTQ, and disabled people face. So body positivity can seem much more daunting, and it can only increase pressure at times. For example, people of color, they'll face colorism and racism. Trans and queer people face body dysmorphia, and disabled people face ableism. These all contribute to negative self-image views that will only worsen if they deal with fat phobia as well. And finally, the movement can promote toxic positivity, which is basically the idea that feeling forced to love your body can lead to suppression of negative emotions. In short, it means people feel pressured to love their bodies, which was extremely difficult and near impossible for those who have been shamed for their bodies for their entire lives. So a more inclusive and authentic movement was born out of the body positivity movement called the body neutrality movement. And the goal of ending fat shaming and discrimination is still present, but body neutrality basically says that in a culture that idolizes skinniness, body neutrality allows people to regain respect and love for their bodies without forcing toxic positivity. But what does body neutrality really mean? Basically, it outlines that bodies are meant to be respected for their function and not for their appearance. For example, somebody may have gratitude for their legs for allowing them to run. Because the toxic positivity was removed, body neutrality is more realistic and attainable, especially for minority groups, because they can develop a practical relationship with their bodies. Body neutrality directly challenges the dominant narrative by stripping it of the idea that bodies are meant to be looked at or admired for their shape. Diet culture and the weight loss industry thrive off of insecurities based on appearance. However, society can remove that power through viewing bodies as tools or vehicles of movement. In that way, people begin to value being healthy and strong over being visually appealing. So in my first example is when Serena Williams wore a catsuit to play tennis after giving birth recently. The catsuit compressed her limbs and allowed her to function better. In this way, her clothes are a means of enhancing her tennis skills rather than being a fashion statement. She respects her body by using healthy methods to help it recover. Unfortunately, many people criticized her for wearing the suit, and she was told not to wear the catsuit again, because the dominant narrative demands people adhere to its beliefs, its fat-phobic beliefs. She was silenced for believing in the counter-narrative. In my second example, a Black woman posted a thank you letter to my body, in which she details that she does not fully love her body, but she writes that Every stretch mark I traced, I know you used to help carry two healthy babies to term. Every inch of my thighs I've complained about helped me to run track, a sport I've obsessed over for most of my life. And every flaw I've pointed out to you helped to mold me into the woman I am today. I know that you, of all people, know how scary I think getting older is, but I also believe you're incredible for navigating me through 3 entire decades. The woman admires her body for birthing 2 children and for surviving for 30 years. She recognizes that features such as stretch marks are evidence that her body has adapted and worked hard to reward her with children. Ultimately, body neutrality offers an entirely different framework for understanding body image. Hopefully, as the years go on, fat phobia can begin to dwindle and the narrative can shift toward body neutrality.